Hi, my name is Sean Tapiero, and I played Dylan Lang in Matched, which is now streaming globally. Please click the link below to check it out. Working on the set of Matched with Sal, being a first-time director, honestly, it didn't really feel like that a lot of the time. Sal's really great with time management. He's great with making sure everyone's head's on straight. I've been on a lot of amateur sets. I can tell you that his problem-solving ability is unlike any other first director I've ever worked with. It was a delight. I never felt like things were out of control. I always felt like we kind of were cool, calm, and collected, and we always had more or less, I mean, every set runs behind, but more or less the wheels were on the right way. Everything was greased, and we had a good time. It was good. Dylan Lang to me is a kind of guy. I got a great note from Sal, the director. He told me that Dylan was this guy who has everything in his life together. He's got the job, he's got the apartment, he gets women, and he's got a great car and all that. But what he doesn't really have is a lasting love in his life. So I really wanted to center his character development around the idea that that's sort of his kryptonite. Even though he's this guy that's got everything going for him, he doesn't feel like he's quite accomplished in the area of having a life partner, someone to build a life with. So I really wanted to show that he was the kind of guy who, while to someone walking down the street, it might appear like this guy has everything, but he's got his own internal struggles, and that namely being a partner to spend the rest of his life with. He just wants to connect. He wants to be loved like any other man would. He's just not so much misunderstood, but it seems that people think he's this kind of guy who, he's got like the nepotism thing going for him, and he's very much, got the silver spoon in his mouth, but he doesn't really see it that way. He in fact sees it as much more of him being in the shadow of his father and him not being established yet because he doesn't have a household and a home yet to really cultivate with another person. So I really wanted that to show. In terms of the method I used for fleshing out the character, a lot of that just came naturally to me. I can't really relate in the sense that I've got a father that paved an empire for me, but a lot of the little nuances of his character were things that Sal and I had fleshed out that he knew that both of us would have similarities in. For instance, Dylan plays guitar. I'm in a rock band where I play guitar. Little things like that were already things that were part of me, Sean, as the actor. But it was honestly in most of his characteristics, they were just things that kind of jumped off the page at me. Not many things that I had really had to prepare, more or less, but more so things that I just kind of felt out in Sal's writing of the character that I just kind of felt would make sense. I fell in love with the script the day that I read it. I had met Sal to shoot a short film for a competition that he was entering. He slapped Matched on my lap and he said, "Hey, I've got a great script here. I think you should definitely read for it." Reading the character, I fell in love with him immediately. My relationship with ALEC Centeno, who plays Kyle, he is honestly, he's one of the easiest guys to get along with. I think he's a blast to work with. Even when the camera's not rolling, it's a shame because we're missing great B-roll footage. I mean, he is his characters. I mean, he embodies his performances perfectly. Even while the cameras aren't rolling, he's making me laugh. He's just that guy. I mean, Sal made a joke that he's like the new Jim Carrey of our era, and I back him on that 100%. I think he's incredibly charismatic. I can't say enough great things about the guy. He's incredibly positive. He's a delight to be around. I would definitely love to work with him again in the future. I don't think it's really hard showing the chemistry between the two of us because all of it is real. He and I are really friends, and he and I just really know how to just kind of play off of each other, and that's rarer than you might think. But he's great. Yeah. So the jogging scene, the bang and denies. Yeah. As it's been known. Sal's really great in that he allows us to kind of embody the characters how we see fit. So he really likes to look at his dialogue as sort of general guidelines without straying off the beaten path too much. He really allows his actors to play. And I think when you have two personalities like myself and like Alec, it's very, very easy to do that because we feed off of each other. So, we have the general guideline of the script, but also when you have somebody that's quick on their feet like Alec, it's easy to get those kind of reactions from each other just because all we naturally are just entertainers. We want to brighten up the room, and I think both of us are pretty good at improv, so it makes it a lot easier to work with somebody like Alec, and especially with a director like Sal, who gives you the freedom to make those decisions. So the transition for Dylan, I know he starts off very likable, and that's because all you're seeing is Dylan's exterior, right? You're seeing everything that moves around him, and so everyone's like, oh, this is Dylan Lang. He's the son of the boss, and he's got a great work ethic. And the first act of the movie, you're seeing all of Dylan's virtues and everything that makes him this desirable, young, successful, tech guy. So it's easy to kind of show that when he's kind of falling for this girl who he believes could be the love of his life. I mean, everybody is a delight to be around when they find new love. So it was easy to kind of embody that. The reason why I feel like Dylan has to take such a drastic 180 turn for the audience is because the subject of women is his Achilles heel. While he might get with a lot of them, he doesn't ever feel fulfilled when he's with these fast women, because it's never really about getting laid for Dylan. It's really, he's a bit of a hopeless romantic. He's always kind of wanted something that he feels like hasn't been handed to him. So when he finally feels like this is going to complete my life, is this woman that's going to tie together my entire story. Well, this woman's going to wrap a bow on my perfect life. She's great for me. She's charismatic. She's also smart. So leading up to that big reveal that she isn't who she portrayed herself to be, all you see is this anticipation and this giddiness, and that's why all these audience members are falling in love with that nice Dylan. But once it's revealed that he's not going to get the storybook wedding, and this isn't what he thought it was, and the fantasy isn't reality, he becomes really bitter about it. And I think he's very angry with the fact that he could have been fooled into something like that, because he had just invested so much energy and emotion and time into this fantasy, into this idea of who that Kelly Gatto would have been. And then when he gets the reality, he's so incredibly disappointed to the point where he just lashes out, and he's not really aware of being any sort of nice to her or any sort of empathy. He's not really trying to be empathetic, right? Because he's just been crushed in this way, and the way that he shows that pain is by being crude and by being nasty. And so even though a lot of people, I feel like, kind of fell out of love with Dylan, I would still stand by the belief that isn't really him. And it's just, the reality is everybody reacts differently when they're disappointed, when they're let down, and when they're heartbroken. And I think for Dylan, it was the type of thing where he's got a lot of trauma and a lot of things that would make him lash out. Instead of really handling that grief in a healthy way, he doesn't really handle it that way, because he internalizes a lot of things, like the death of his father and like how he felt like he could never measure up. To me, having fleshed out the character, it really feels like Dylan's agony is more of a ticking time bomb than it is that he's really just like an undercover douchebag, So that's kind of how I wanted it to portray. And, some people will see it that way and some people won't, but that's how I wanted to play it. We get to this final scene where it's very dramatic, because it's the final climax and everything. And of course, everything was Murphy's Law. Everything goes wrong. We lose our location the day of. And everyone's frantically going around. Our call time is about to come up, and we still don't know where we're shooting. Thankfully, KANE SCHIRMER, who plays Michael in this film, he's one of those guys that's just well connected, knows everybody in the area, makes one phone call, finds a new location for us on a whim. It was honestly a lifesaver, KANE was. So KANE, if you're watching this, good on you, man. Incredible job. So gets us this new location, which you could have argued was even better. I mean, everything after finding the location just fell right into place. But actually getting to set, we're in this massive, like car workshop garage, and there's, after dark, there's no AC in those garages. So it's incredibly hot. I mean, the air is thick enough to cut with a knife. It was arguably the longest shoot day we had, because we were shooting overnight. We didn't wrap till about 5 a.m. and by then I had been at my wits' end. I'm a pretty patient guy, and I do like to toot my horn about that. I'm a pretty patient guy, and that was an experience. Just like having to be tied up to a chair, gag in my mouth, the heat. I'm already wearing like half of a suit because it's coming from a scene where I was essentially taken from a day at work. So all the conditions, it being hot, having to be gagged and tied to a chair, having to fall over in the chair, and then just ultimately, everything that ensues afterwards. It was incredibly challenging. Arielle is, I have to say, after going through that entire day, she was in better spirits than I was. I mean, I don't know how she does it, but contrary to what it looks like on screen, she's just a ball of energy and just joy all the time. I mean, she can really flip it, like at the drop of a hat. She can just be a psychomaniac. But as soon as you yell cut, she's just back to bouncy, great Arielle. It's just, it seems like no environmental circumstances ever phase her. And she's wearing a latex onesie in that scene, which was probably way hotter than anything I had to deal with. But she's great. I mean, she's a delight, and she's incredibly professional, and she knows how to really ramp up a scene, which is one of her great talents. But it was by far the most challenging day of shooting, and honestly, it was because of that. I think it was so gratifying when Sal finally said that's a wrap, because it just felt like that one day was such an embodiment of all the hard work, on the entire film shooting, it almost felt like he really made me earn it, making that the final scene and wrapping with that day. The final cut, I was incredibly proud to see it, especially when you consider that this was just an idea that Sal and I had maybe 2+ years ago, that we were very optimistic would actually happen, but to see it happen is something else. I mean, you can plan for something, but you can never plan for how you feel about it once you consume it. I think a lot of actors, there are their own worst critics, and because there's a million things that they think that they could have done better. Maybe if I just put a little bit more effort into this day, or I reflected this. I am incredibly proud of what it is. And I told Sal this from the first time I watched the very first screening. I told him, I'm a very, very big critic of myself. Nobody beats me up more than me. And I think for you, Sal, to make me proud of my work is already something that's so incredible. It's more than what most directors have been able to do for me. So I do sincerely believe that. I'm incredibly proud of it, and obviously, it being me, there are always things that I feel like I'll critique about myself. But I think what comes into that also is I have to remember that the audience is also consuming this. So I have to listen to what other people are going to tell me about my performance and not just believe the monkey on my back, but sitting there in that theater, standing up to get an ovation in a sold out crowd in a real movie theater that took place around where I grew up, to see myself on that screen was a surreal experience. And it just is, I'm eternally grateful. Even seeing the final cut is just, the thing that comes to mind is gratitude and pride. I mean, I think I always try to downplay things that I do because it's me in them. But what I really need to be doing is uplifting myself and being congratulatory to myself, the fact that I got it, and also just trusting others with the vision of me. I mean, Sal wouldn't have put me here if he didn't think I could do it. So that's something that I've come to reflect on after seeing the final cut. And I'm incredibly proud, and I'm very grateful, and I never take it for granted. And I hope there's many more opportunities to come.